Hello, welcome to Contact. I'm Gloria Creighton, and with me here today at Anderson's Restaurant is multidisciplinary performer and creator Catherine Lee. Welcome, Catherine.
Thanks.
I should say also that you've been a very important part of the city's dance and theatre scene for almost 20 years. Could it be almost 20 years?
Yes, it could.
You've been a choreographer, performer, singer, dancer, teacher, arts administrator, and a software developer. Now, all the former I can understand being in the arts, but software developer, how does that tie in with dance and theatre?
Well, the particular software that I helped to develop is meant for dancers and choreographers to use, and now it's actually expanded into a form that can be used by animators as well.
What's it called?
Originally it was called Compose, and now the marketed name of the program is Lifeforms. It's a program that we developed at Simon Fraser University in the computer research lab there, computer graphics research.
Right.
And essentially I got involved because a friend of mine in the East is very involved in computer work with dance notation and so on, and she knew Dr. Calvert and said, call him because he's looking for someone. If you're not the person, then I know that you'll be able to connect him with the right people, because he wanted a choreographer specifically to work with. And I was quite leery at first because my opinion of computers was fairly negative. And I went up and spoke to him, and we decided that we would try it out for 3 months. And then I just got more and more interested, and it turned into a 5-year
project. So here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Can you explain perhaps for people who don't dance or don't choreograph how it works?
Sure. What you have is the computer screen, which has the potential of having windows. Okay, each window that can come up is used for a different purpose. So one window has a single figure in it, which can be used to create individual movement sequences. So I can put my hand here, I can put my hand here, I can put my hand here, I can put my hand here. Right. Those 4 separate actions can be put together by the computer and made into a movement phrase. And then that individual figure moving can be placed on a stage in the window that's called the stage window. And that single figure can become 2 figures or 3 figures or 6 figures, or almost as many as you like that you can tolerate trying to work with. And you can copy that movement, you can expand it, you can change it backwards, you can
do anything with it.
Slow it down, speed it up. You really can manipulate the movement once you have the movement phrase created. Right. And so the 3rd window is called the timeline window, and that allows you to manipulate the time.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
so you can do all kinds of...
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to work out movement patterns before you reach the dancers. So it's a little bit like a writer who writes a script and then takes it to the actors and says, let's try this on our feet.
Right.
And then can go back to the computer and make the revisions and corrections that you'd like to make. Then you can end up at the end of the process of working hopefully with the dancers and then in the computer and with the dancers, you can end up with a notated score for your piece. And it's quite interesting to work with dancers with this program, because most people are fairly resistant as dance people. They're afraid of technology, and they're specifically afraid of, as I was, of computers. And what they discover is, first of all, it's incredibly fun to play with the computer program, and secondly, that they can really get a feel for the whole of the work, which is completely impossible when you're working in the studio. You just simply have to trust the choreographer. You have to blindly say, I will be the tool that you will work with.
Yeah, it's hard for dancers to see the vision that the choreographer has.
Because the choreographer, unless they have some way of writing it down and showing it.
So this way they can see it
so
at a
this
glance.
way they can actually see it not only as a hard copy form or something, but they actually can see the little figures. You can take a videotape of your choreography with these funny little humanoid figures.
It sounds
take
wonderful.
it to the studio. Yeah.
And very useful. What did people do before this? Are there other systems of notation?
Yes, there are actually about 70 known dance notation systems that have been used through history. At this point, there are 3 that are really commonly used. Laban notation, Banish notation, and Eshkol-Wachman.
But they're not using computers.
No. Well, some of the people who have been instrumental in the continuing research with those notation systems have become specifically interested in working on computers. So, in fact, my friend Rhonda Ryman at the University of Waterloo, who's a world-famous notator herself and choreologist, she has developed a Banish system on the computer, and there are other people who have developed Laban notation systems on the computer. So those are being used. But you have to be quite conversant in the notation system before you can.
I could imagine.
Make use of it.
Yeah. So your system was pretty revolutionary then in the fact that you use the computer.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it? You've actually just come back from Quebec.
Yes, I was in Montreal and in Quebec City, doing some presentations. One was an international presentation for arts and technology. And some of the same group of people who had gotten together in 1989 from around the world got together again this year. And it was very interesting to see some of the innovations. And people were very, very interested in the computer program. Some people, of course, were new and hadn't seen the program. Apparently, there were people in the audience going,
yeah, I can't believe it. Do you see this as a thing of the future for dance people? I mean, is it something that we're going to have to accept?
I don't think we have to accept it, no. I think that it's always going to be a choice. But I do think that it provides an objective kind of way of working, which is highly offensive to some people.
You've had a lot of resistance with
sure.
a lot of choreographers?
Lots of people. I mean, I've been turned down for grants because people are so incensed that there should be no funding given to the development of that type of technology for dance. They're quite radical people, and they just wouldn't even like to see videotapes supported.
So they want to continue just relying on their memory?
Yes, on the human body and the human interaction in the studio, which, I mean, that's valid as well. It's an important component, and it is the only art form that still really and truly does that. That a work is made from scratch, and it is completely dependent on the people that are in the room together making that work. And that's exciting. It is a different way of thinking than it is to have something transcribed in advance and then to take it to performers such as actors or singers.
Do you use it in your work, Celie?
I've only used it a little bit. I've used it a couple of times. What I do find is that the part of the program that's lacking is the initial manipulation of the figure to make your initial movement phrase ideas. And it's so slow, which it probably will not speed up for a few more years until there's a cheap way of dancers putting a suit on and that feeding into the computer immediately. And that is possible, but it's very, very expensive.
Well,
so until that happens.
More money into dance for that to happen.
I guess.
Let's get back to Celie. Now, I'm calling you Celie. People might be a bit confused. Your name is Catherine Lee, but for years you've been called Celie.
Celie.
An abbreviated form. Let's get back to your work. You're a solo performer usually, multidisciplinary. Can you elaborate on the multidisciplinary?
Well, I've always been interested in singing. I've always been interested in characterization. And of course, I've always been interested in movement. I started dancing when I was 5. Well, actually, I think more likely I started dancing when my mother was trying to teach me piano, and I wiggled all over the piano bench.
So it's always been several.
I better put her into dance classes, and so those elements have always been of interest to me. I sang naturally, and I, continued to sing through the years. When I came to Vancouver, in fact, someone heard me singing and said, "You should be, studying singing." So I thought, oh, that's a novel idea. I guess I'll go study singing. So I ended up studying singing and studying theater and studying dance, and then knew right from the start, which I believe is actually from my musical theater background, that I was always interested in integrating the three things. That I found dance by itself was lovely but not enough. Singing by itself was lovely but not enough. Acting by itself was lovely but not enough.
So you need all forms.
Yeah.
You were actually one of the first multidisciplinary people in the city, weren't you? Years ago in the 70s,
so,
one of the first independents. There weren't that many around.
That's right. When I graduated from York University, the notion of an independent choreographer was still virtually unheard of.
What did most dancers do? Go
Oh,
on
and they
to
immediately joined companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably Judy Jarvis, who had been one of my teachers, was really the first true independent dancer choreographer in the country, but certainly to my knowledge anyway. And so I suppose I was mentally influenced by her example, and there were a number of us who were, well, I don't know, we just didn't fit the mold. I think that's the only thing that you can say. We just,
Well, also the way you want it to work. You needed all of these elements.
That's right.
But it was an unusual thing in the 70s to be just working on your own and working with voice. You would dance and sing at the same time and perhaps have an instrument on stage. So it was quite a unique way.
Right.
Now it's the fashion.
That's right. Yes, it's very, very common, especially in Vancouver. It's probably become the modus operandi that makes Vancouver's work unique.
Why is that so now? Do you have any? Is
Well,
it because we're West Coast?
I also think that there were a number of people back in the early to mid 70s who were in and of themselves interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary in their mindset.
Right.
People like Terry Hunter and Savannah Walling and Karen Rimmer, now Jameson. These are people who came from a background where their primary interest perhaps was anthropology, but they wanted to explore their anthropological interests through
movement,
some type of performance. They wanted to bring it to life. They wanted to enliven the experience for people of anthropological study.
Right.
And I actually think there is a person who has that kind of mind. And it just happened that there were 5 or 6 or 8 of us in the city at that time who were like that,
Yeah. And actually in that connection, you were starting, I was going to say a support group. Where did that come from? A network. A network for multidisciplinary people.
Oh, right now,
Can you
yes.
tell us about that?
Well, the man that I perform historical dance with is also a multidisciplinary performer. We have sung in choirs together, and he is an actor as well as a dancer. And we just felt last year that it was important that people who had this peculiar mindset, and it's, I think there are dance people who use text, and I think there are actors who use movement, but I think that an interdisciplinary thing between the performing arts is actually something a little bit different, and it really does require that not only the creator has that kind of mindset, but the collaborating artists, the performers, have that kind of mindset. And we started talking to various people and discovered there were really a lot of people out there. So we got a small grant specifically to start connecting with those fellow performer creators. And out of that started to have meetings once a month. Through those meetings, we discussed what is the nature of interdisciplinary art and so on and so forth, had lots of good arguments about that. And then in June, we actually had our first performance at the museum, which was specifically for people who were doing interdisciplinary work, who do not call their work dance, who do not call their work theater, who do not call their work music, but they really call it, they name it,
Right.
you know.
Now, if there's a person, an artist or a performer out there who's sort of lost, who feels that they fall into this category, can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
How,
yes.
do you have a phone number that you can say? Or?
Certainly. They could call me.
Okay.
581-0973.
Okay, 581-0973, all right, good. So you as a choreographer now, you go at the multidisciplinary, what inspires you? How do you, what kind of themes do you work with?
I've often been interested in what I would call the folk element of the folk element in my life, and also the folk element in other people's lives. In spite of the fact that I studied, modern dance, which is a really urban dance form, and ballet, obviously, that's even more urban than modern dance. I feel somehow or another that my experience with musical theater and folk dancing and those things called me to value the folk component. So many years ago, Reed Campbell and I did a piece which we named for the piece of music we sang, which was The Emperor's Waltz. But the whole thing was kind of a spoof on Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. But it was all done in bare feet, and it was, I was lifting Reed and
reversing the roles, right?
It was all very lighthearted, and I feel like getting into the folk type of rhythms and movements and things. Those
something a little more universal,
yes,
than just your localized urban
different things that have stimulated me. I mean, personal internal turmoil has been a preoccupation of mine for the last few years.
Do you have is your life in constant turmoil, Celie?
I'm wondering whether maybe artists are ever not in turmoil. But
a lot of artists say when they're in a calm period and everything's going fine, they just don't create very much.
Well,
so is this necessary, this turmoil, this
maybe,
angst?
Maybe. I actually find almost the reverse, that after a period of turmoil, if there's finally a period of calm, then I can get a perspective on what's been going on and start to make an artwork.
Yeah, but doesn't it come from the period that you had to have preceded the period of calm with the period of turmoil?
So the big piece that I created in the last couple of years is called Snakes in My Mind, and it's based on my voices that I hear telling me what to do in my life. The little yammer, 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 role-playing voices. And I created them in the mode of Renaissance archetypes. So within the piece there are 6 characters: the princess, the hag, the martyr, the dragon, the warrior, and the innocent. And those characters all interplay with one another, trying to convince one another to do various things and get thoroughly confused. The whole thing is set up in the format of a game show.
Are you going to be performing
sort
this?
of a game show from
anywhere? Game show from hell. It sounds fascinating. And then with all of the different elements, is this going to be performed in the near
actually,
future?
it has been performed, and I'm hoping to remount it.
Something.
But this is an example of one of the pieces that actually really very much sprang from my own personal internal experience of life.
Now you mentioned Renaissance dance, historical dance. This is another. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what you're doing with it?
Again, David Garfinkel is my dance partner, my performing partner for that. And we've been doing both Renaissance and 18th century dances in performance. We've done something for the Dancing on the Edge Festival each year for the last 3 years, and we perform for the Early Music Festival, and then various other contexts. Anytime someone calls us up and says, could you come and do something? So
you're open to, again, if someone was to hear this and phone you up to do a special occasion, a wedding, a party, or whatever?
Yes, we've done a few of those. It's been quite fun, actually.
How about costumes?
The costumes we try to have it as authentic as possible.
Do you rent?
No, actually we have costumes. I was one of the founders of the Vancouver Historical Dance Society, and that society continued for about 8 or 10 years and actually accumulated quite a few costumes. So those have been the basis for what David and I have. Just in this past year, we've also accumulated a group of kind of semi-professional performers who have performed in Dancing on the Edge this year in Dryden's Secular Masque, which is quite a delightful little, very short, and obviously does not stand alone as a piece of literature if you're reading it, or as a great play. It was intended as a masque, which was a courtly entertainment, especially favored by the Jacobeans. They just thought masks were the cat's meow, and are meant to be done in lots of costuming with lots of songs, lots of dances. They're essentially, what they are is music theater of the Renaissance and 18th century.
Anything upcoming in that connection?
Well, we will be performing that masque again for the Arts Umbrella in April.
In April.
And David and I are hoping to do some performances around Christmas time, but nothing's set up at the moment.
Yeah, I was thinking it would really suit the Christmas season.
That particular piece would be very good for the turning of the new year.
Okay, so we'll leave the historical dance for a moment and go on to your singing. You're with a choir.
I am. I sing with Electra,
which is
a women's choir. It is an award-winning women's choir. In fact, we seem to keep winning various categories of the CBC choral competition and other competitions.
What makes it an award-winning choir?
I think it's a happy combination of very brilliant leadership by Morna Edmondson and Diane Loomer, who are excellent, excellent musicians and have chosen the singers in the choir very carefully. The singers are highly skilled, very highly skilled. Many of them sing with, other important choirs in the city. And they are, I don't know, they're just extremely fine women. Like, it's wonderful to just be in this group of 30 or 40 women that are high power and energetic and gentle and have great sense of humor, and have that many people in the room all agreeing to do the same thing is really quite something.
What type of material, Celie?
I suppose you would call it mostly of classical orientation, but we certainly sing folk music as well. And period-wise, it goes right back to Hildegard von Bingen from the 12th century, through to pieces that the choir has commissioned. We are doing one by Howard Bashaw in this concert, which is has 40 solo parts. The score is written for all 40 people singing solo parts.
Incredible.
It is. And speaking, actually, that piece is based on an ancient Latin book called De Rerum Natura.
Any upcoming performances?
With Electra, the 7th and 8th of November.
At?
I think it's Queen's Park Church in New West. And on the Saturday, the 7th. And at Ryerson United Church in Vancouver on 45th.
But this is an ongoing thing, so we can.
Yes,
people miss those.
Normally there are concerts every couple of months.
Great. Let's go on to Celie, the teacher.
Okay.
Okay, you've been with Studio 58 at Langara for 14 years.
This is my 14th year, yes.
So you're teaching actors movement.
Right, right.
What type of things do you do?
Well, I'm interested in helping them develop a strong, lithe body in which they are confident, because this is one of the things I've really discovered, is that many, many actors are terribly frightened by their bodies and by moving. They just assume I can't move, just as dancers assume I can't sing and I can't talk. Right. And it's really, I don't know why our society does this to us, but anyway. So my interests are in helping to give them a tool that will serve them in their work, and something that they can feel expressive with. So we do all sorts of things. We do some even gymnastics. We do a little running. We certainly do modern dance type of exercises. I do improvisational work with them in movement, and I teach them after they're past their first term for sure. I teach them historical dance and period dance, because that's extremely useful for especially anyone that's interested in classical theater forms.
Wonderful. So they're getting a good grounding.
Yeah.
Things that will, they can use in the future.
Right.
You also teach at Main Dance Place. Now this is a specifically modern dance class.
Modern dance technique, that's right.
Yeah. And that's open to the public?
It is. I've been now doing this for a year and a half at Main Dance, and the whole point of these classes is to give people from the public an experience of modern dance that is completely non-threatening.
So they don't have to be professional dancers?
No, absolutely not.
You take beginners? People?
Absolutely. People who have no background whatsoever. The first classes in the series assume that people have never ever studied any dance at all. And then we just progress as quickly as the group can go. And I'm a great believer that you learn much faster by laughing a lot. So I try to be as silly as possible. And it seems to have
been scientifically proven too that people do learn better if they're relaxed, and the subconscious clicks in and all of that.
And it is shocking to me how much our society again seems to be fixated on getting things right.
Yeah.
And the minute that you're worried about getting something right, then you're no longer focusing on
what you're doing.
The work is.
Right.
And this is a struggle, for everybody, whether or not they're dance people who are pursuing a career, or people starting out in the first class, or it's my acting students. Everybody seems to have this same kind of blockage. It takes a long time to let that one go.
Yeah. You've had a long career in teaching, actually. You had your own studio, Room to Move, which was multidisciplinary, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was.
Was that in the 80s, 70s?
Yes, we opened it in 1981.
Yeah. And that, what you taught?
Well, I was teaching, I taught pretty much dance, I suppose, dance techniques and improvisation there. But we had 30 different teachers teaching at the studio at the point that we had to close it.
It was quite an ambitious undertaking at the time.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about it the other day that it really was a fantastic opportunity for people who were beginners
Yeah.
and adults. It wasn't directed at all towards children. It was directed towards the adult beginner and anyone who wanted to continue studying.
Do you have a word of advice to, say, a person out there who is interested in taking a theatre or a dance class?
Do it.
Do it.
Seriously, one day I went in to the belly dancing class that was being taught at Room to Move. And I said, gee, isn't that wonderful to see that older lady in the class? And the woman that was teaching said to me, do you know she's my prize student? And you know how old she is?
No.
I said, well, no. She said, she's 82. She's 82. She
82
started
years of
doing
age.
belly dancing when she was 75. So if
Isn't that
anybody
wonderful?
can take their courage in their hands and at the age of 75 say, I wanted to belly dance all my life and I'm going to learn how, and just do it. It certainly means that anyone of any age can just undertake anything they want.
Because I think a lot of people are intimidated to start a dance class.
Yes.
Oh, do I have to have experience? And so come on down to Main Dance and take classes with you. You'll have fun, they'll giggle, and they'll learn their technique too. And you know, Celia, on that note, our time is up. We did not get into your arts administration and the dance scene, but that's for another interview. I'd like to thank you for taking time out.
Well, thank you.
To come down and chat with us.
It's really great to see you again.
We'll look for you in the choirs and on stage and all over. And good luck to you.
Thanks.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Anderson's for providing this lovely setting for the interviews. For contact, I'm Gloria Creighton. Please join us next time.